January 9th, 2024. 13-year-old Ziyah Harris stepped off her school bus in Detroit, Michigan. She never came home. Within hours, investigators began working backward through her final movements. For months, detectives combed Detroit and surrounding areas, searching abandoned buildings, wooded areas, and waterways. Volunteer search parties joined the effort, pushing through winter weather. Law enforcement expanded into neighboring cities and towns. Week after week produced nothing. The initial 72 hours of a missing persons case are critical. That window for a live recovery shrinks with every passing hour. Ziyah's family launched a desperate campaign. Social media posts went viral. Flyers covered Detroit. But as days turned into weeks, the hope began to darken. The search transformed. It became a race against time. Every day without answers compounded the anguish. The question that haunted investigators was no longer if something had happened to her. It was what. But as detectives dug into Ziyah's background, they found something crucial that changed the entire investigation. 2 years before she vanished, family members had reported her to Child Protective Services. They believed she had been abused. The allegations had not triggered an investigation, but for detectives, it was a red flag. They obtained those CPS records. The name was Jarvis Butts. He had been accused of abusing Ziyah when she was 11. In February 2022, Ziyah's great-aunt Janelle was told by Shannon, Ziyah's aunt and Jarvis's girlfriend, that Jarvis had been touching Ziyah and 2 other children inappropriately. Janelle knew what Jarvis's history meant. He was on the sexual offender registry. He had served 8 years in prison for third-degree criminal sexual conduct. This was not a man with allegations. This was a man with a conviction. On April 13, 2022, Janelle called CPS and filed a formal complaint. She heard nothing back. No follow-up, no investigation. Another family member filed a separate report 2 months later. CPS conducted interviews this time. They determined the risk was low. The case closed. But the allegations had put Jarvis on detectives' radar. They began asking, if 2 separate family members had reported abuse in 2022, what had been happening between then and now? On February 15, 2024, police brought Jarvis in for questioning. This was less than 6 weeks after Ziyah went missing. During the interview, he claimed he had been dealing with a legal matter on the day Ziyah disappeared. He said he knew nothing about her whereabouts. He mentioned casually that she sometimes visited his auto shop to spend time with his daughter, her cousin. An innocent explanation for an innocent relationship. He denied any involvement. Police did not believe him. The detectives had experience with this type of interview. They had seen predators minimize their contact with victims. They had heard the careful explanations designed to sound plausible while concealing the truth. Jarvis's account did not ring true because it contradicted what they would soon discover in his communications. As the investigation continued behind closed doors, law enforcement focused their attention entirely on Jarvis Butts. The family allegations about inappropriate behavior, his registration as a sex offender. The pattern was there. It was enough to place him at the center of their inquiry. But allegations alone do not secure a conviction. Evidence does, and detectives knew they needed to find it. When detectives took a closer look at Jarvis's phone and his internet search history, what they found was worse than they expected. On January 9, 2024, the day Ziyah disappeared, a text came through on her school-issued tablet. It was sent to Jarvis. The message read, "Don't forget to be here before 3. I will let you know when I'm leaving the school. If you're not here, I will wait." A second message followed. "Send okay if you see the message so I can delete your number." Jarvis responded, "Okay." Those 3 words would help prosecutors build their case. Those 3 words and the context around them revealed something profound about the nature of the relationship between Jarvis and Ziyah. She was clearly worried about being seen with him. She wanted to delete evidence of his number from her phone. She was coordinating a secret pickup. A 13-year-old girl was taking precautions to hide contact with this adult man. Those texts directly contradicted what he had told police in February. He had claimed he had not seen Ziyah since late December or early January, only at her grandmother's house. He said he could not remember the last time they had spoken. When asked if they were supposed to meet on January 9th, he said no. When asked why she would have his number saved, why she would be texting him at all, he said he had no idea. But he was lying. Once detectives realized that, he became their prime suspect. The lie was not a small inconsistency. It was a fundamental contradiction of his entire account, and it suggested he knew exactly what happened on January 9th. They tracked his cell phone location on January 9th. The phone moved from Detroit, near his auto shop, to Ypsilanti around 4 p.m. The timing was significant. Ziyah's message had said to pick her up before 3 p.m. By 4 p.m., the phone had traveled 40 minutes away. When they interviewed Jarvis's sister, she told them she had seen him at the shop that day with a little girl. The description matched Ziyah. When she asked who the child was, he said it was his girlfriend's niece. A simple explanation. But it was an explanation he had not mentioned to police during his February interview. It was an explanation he had not volunteered. It was an explanation that emerged only when investigators began pressing him with the evidence. It was only after Ziyah went missing that Jarvis's sister understood. That girl was Ziyah. Another witness confirmed the same account. A woman whose mother's car Jarvis and his business partner Cordell were working on that day saw them at the location in Ypsilanti. Jarvis introduced the girl as his niece. She was quiet. She did not speak much. Nothing about her demeanor seemed distressed. Nothing seemed unusual. But that is often how predators operate. They put on a performance for witnesses. They maintain the appearance of normalcy, even when they are actively committing crimes. From there, his phone traveled back to Detroit, back to the auto shop. That evening, Jarvis checked into the Park Crest Motel. The next morning, January 10th, he checked out around 12:30 p.m. His phone then showed movement into the River Rouge area of Detroit, a remote section of the city where abandoned lots and wooded areas provided isolation. Investigators searched the locations his phone had pinged. Near 7 Mile and Burke Road, in a wooded section, they found articles of clothing: red and black and white Nike sneakers, a pink jumpsuit, a hoodie, gloves, a dirty towel. Every item matched what Ziyah had been wearing the day she disappeared. DNA was collected from each piece. The evidence was stacking against him. Witnesses placed them together. He had lied about seeing her. Her clothing was found along his route. But what the detectives discovered when they examined his phone and internet history revealed something far more sinister. Jarvis had been grooming Ziyah. He had been abusing her for years. Text messages between them dated back to 2022. They showed a relationship that had been inappropriate since she was at least 11 years old. The content of those messages described a disturbing pattern that detectives chose not to detail publicly. But one message stood out. In September 2023, months before she went missing, Ziyah sent Jarvis a text. She believed she had missed her period. What followed was a series of exchanges between a frightened child and an adult man who held power over her. Ziyah told him she was scared. She said she did not know what to do. She said she had to go to the doctor the next day. Her fear was evident in every message. Jarvis responded that he thought she had already taken a pregnancy test and it was negative. But she insisted she needed another one. She had no money. She asked him to get it for her. When he did not respond immediately, she sent more messages. Growing more desperate, she urged him to act. "You ain't scared to get a plan B? Get a pregnancy test and bring it later today. Just act like you have to use the bathroom." The desperation in that message is unmistakable. She was not asking, she was pleading. She was a child alone in a situation she did not know how to handle. She was dependent on the adult who had created the situation. She waited. Then she tried again. "Please, will you do it? Hello?" Finally, Jarvis answered. "Okay." That message changed everything about the investigation. Ziyah was pregnant. At 13 years old, Jarvis Butts was the alleged father. For the detectives, the motivation became clear. Jarvis had not only been abusing her, he had been grooming her for years, systematically breaking down her defenses and making her dependent on him. And now she was pregnant with his child. That was a problem he could not afford to have exist. That was a problem with a deadline. For a 13-year-old girl, a pregnancy does not hide itself forever. Eventually, doctors would ask questions. Eventually, people would know. Eventually, there would be evidence. For Jarvis, the clock was ticking. As a registered sex offender with a history of abusing children, he understood the consequences if anyone found out what he had been doing. Prison, years of it, federal charges, mandatory sentencing. He decided there was only one solution. In December 2023, after finding out about the pregnancy, Jarvis began searching. The searches reveal a man in crisis, trying to solve a problem he had created. Between December 8th and December 11th, he repeatedly looked up information about abortion. He was methodical. He visited the Planned Parenthood website multiple times. He researched abortion pills and over-the-counter medications. He looked at websites promoting herbal remedies that women claimed could end pregnancies. Red herbal teas, natural solutions. But these searches were not based on helping Ziyah access safe medical care. They were based on concealment. And when legitimate options began to feel uncertain or slow, he searched for something else entirely. He searched for information about red antifreeze. Antifreeze is a poison. For a man trying to make a problem disappear, that search represents a crossing of a line. It represents the moment when the calculation shifted from terminating a pregnancy to terminating a person. By the time investigators obtained those search records in early 2024, they had the answer to what had happened. Despite the fact that Ziyah's body had not been found, the evidence told them Jarvis Butts had murdered her. The texts, the location data, the witnesses, the search history. Together, they constructed a narrative that prosecutors believed they could prove beyond reasonable doubt. On September 26, 2024, exactly 1 year after Ziyah texted Jarvis about the pregnancy, he was charged with first-degree murder, child sexual abusive activity, and second-degree criminal sexual conduct. At the press conference announcing the charges, prosecutors described him in direct terms. They called him a serial predator. They called him a classic expert groomer and pedophile. They explained his method. He cultivated relationships with women in order to gain access to the young girls and their families. A prosecutor stated, "He groomed and preyed upon Ziyah with expertise. We will prove that he killed young Ziyah after he found out she was pregnant at 13 with his child." This case sits at the intersection of two systems that failed. The family members who reported Jarvis to CPS in 2022 did everything right. They recognized danger. They identified it correctly. They reached out to the agency that exists specifically to protect children from this type of harm. But CPS opened files and then closed them without intervention. No charges were filed. No protection was ordered. No ongoing monitoring occurred. Jarvis remained free to continue what he was doing. Understanding why that happened would require looking at systemic issues in how child protective agencies operate, issues that exist across the country, resource limitations, caseload pressures, the difficulty of gathering evidence for allegations that often happen behind closed doors. These factors do not excuse failures, but they help explain them. What we know is this. Between April 2022, when Janelle filed her report, and January 2024, when Ziyah disappeared, nearly 2 years passed. During that time, Jarvis groomed her further. During that time, he impregnated her. During that time, he planned for what to do about it. By the time Ziyah went missing, that abuse had escalated into something irreversible. This is not a case about a sudden criminal act. This is a case about a trajectory. This is a case about a child who was failed by the adults around her and by the systems designed to protect her. This is a case about a predator who understood those systems and exploited their limitations. Her body has not been recovered. Her family still waits for answers about where she is. Her mother does not know where her daughter is buried. But the digital evidence tells a complete story. The texts, the location data, the search history, the witnesses, the recovered clothing with her DNA. These pieces fit together like a confession written in metadata and physical evidence. If you're still watching this, you need to stay subscribed to this channel. These cases don't get solved without sustained attention, and the story doesn't end here. New developments will break, and you'll want to know them the moment they happen. What do you think should have happened when those CPS reports came in? Leave a comment below. Tell me your honest answer. The investigation into Ziyah Harris's death continues. Jarvis Butts awaits trial, and somewhere in Detroit, a family waits for their daughter to come home.